This is the Equid E-Commerce Show with your host, Jesse Ness, along with Richard O'Tay.
All right, welcome back. As you can see today, it's not Jesse starting the show, it's Richie. Jesse's traveling, getting some stuff taken care of with his mom, and I'm going to keep the show rolling here. Today, I'm really excited. I have a guest coming on that I think is going to be something that could work for your business, especially those that are aspiring to try different forms of advertising and different ways of getting in front of your customer. And I don't know if I can explain it as well as he can. So I'm going to bring on our guest from Postie.com. Dave, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, we splurged for the official Postie.com website. It was actually a big purchase for us back when we were, pre-launch.
It's amazing in this world right now where it's kind of like everything's a clickable link. It still does mean something to go for the .com. People still typing in it sometimes.
I think so. I think brand building in general, it is, I think, symbolic of the seriousness you take, the effort that you put into your business, and especially when you're out in the world engaging with other entrepreneurs and marketers and buyers who are taking, have very serious goals and objectives. If they get the sense that you take your business just as seriously as they do, it's a foundational confidence that gets created. And I think .com and the investment you make in buying that URL probably still means something.
I think so as well. So why don't you give us a little bit of history on first, what is Postie, and then maybe a bit of the origin story of what made you decide that you wanted to take this on?
Sure. Simplest form, Postie is a channel management technology platform for the direct mail space. So kind of the easiest way to maybe for your audience to think about it is with the trade desk of direct mail, the DV360 of direct mail, the Facebook ad manager of direct mail. So the reason that I think we got here is a very authentic path. It was not, hey, let's go create some efficiencies in the direct mail space. It really stemmed from the pain that I would imagine many of your listeners are facing currently, which we really started kind of experiencing the pain of, 6-7 years ago, which is, we woke up and we realized we had hitched our wagon aggressively to Facebook. And that was a good thing for a number of years, tremendous growth on the supply side. And they made a tremendous investment in their ads platform and made it possible to do really complicated things and productive things with targeting and testing and optimizing. But over time, that channel became more saturated, became more expensive, more competitive. And it wasn't an issue that we wanted to completely move away from Facebook. We needed it to de-risk. We needed to go back to a world where marketing was an omnichannel game. And there were a number of different channels that were interacting with each other that could help us grow our businesses more predictably and with more confidence. And so for us, when we started feeling that kind of pain of Facebook, we looked into other digital channels. And I'm sure that would be the first thing that many of your listeners would do as well. But if you rewind back to, this was about 2016, middle of the year, there just wasn't anything big and scalable in digital that was emerging. TikTok didn't exist. Snap existed, but didn't have an ads platform at that point. Programmatic had a place, retargeting had its place, but Facebook was such a behemoth of a demand gen channel that in order to really make a dent into our monthly or quarterly marketing budgets, we needed to find other areas of scale. And so we went back offline as marketers and looked at all of the big scalable channels, and direct mail was one of those channels that even then was still a big channel, but we had just spent so much of our energy moving away from the traditional channels into digital because of the ability to leverage data, first party and third party, go down that sophisticated targeting rabbit hole. There was direct measurement. There's the ability to test and optimize creative and frequency and all of our strategies. And so we looked at direct mail, got excited about the fact that it's a monstrous channel from a scale perspective. There's a tremendous amount of quality data that behaves very similarly to the data available in digital ecosystems. And there's direct measurement. You know who you're reaching with a specific piece of mail and an ad campaign, and you know who's coming to your website or your store and converting. What became abundantly clear was that there had been no innovation in the channel in decades. The way that campaigns are executed, the way the channel was managed was very manual, Excel spreadsheets, phone calls back and forth with printers and agencies. And in 2016, that just wasn't going to fly for us. We were used to doing really sophisticated things at scale, very fast and iteratively on Facebook and programmatic and search. And so the aha moment was, to us, the fragmented nature of the direct mail space did not look any different to how digital display looked before there was a DoubleClick or an Atlas or a trade desk. And we thought, hey, maybe it's possible to port over 20 years of knowledge in online ad serving and marketing automation and build a foundational structure to allow advertisers to engage with the direct mail channel in that same sophisticated, automated, integrated way. So that's how we ended up getting there. It really was a pain point in how the limitations in growth within digital at the point that we were at, and how we can unlock some of the power of kind of the technology behind digital ad channels and apply them to offline channels.
Yeah, it's a similar story. You hear that quite often. Solving your own problem sometimes turns into something you realize you're solving it for other people too. Remind me of the guys at Basecamp, right? That had the agency and it's like, oh man, can't figure out how to solve all this client management stuff. And then boom, next thing you know, they have Basecamp. I'm interested in situations where you could do something like a every door direct through USPS. What is it that you guys are doing differently, or how is it being tracked without going too deep? Obviously, we're not looking at a dashboard or anything. How are you getting additional information, and how are you knowing that someone actually got it? I could understand if they put in a code or something, right, that was on the direct mail, but yeah, I'd love to hear your insights on how that all ties together.
Well, we focus on 3 areas of capabilities and make the investment in technology and workflows and support and services to bring those 3 focal points to life. So the first is targeting. And, in addressable marketing, that's always been one of the big core value proposition. And you mentioned EDDM, every door direct mail, which is an inexpensive way to reach individuals through the mail in a very non-personalized, non-targeted way. So every door direct mail is just that. You're basically saying, hey, in this set of zip codes or delivery carrier routes, as the U.S. Postal Service refers to them, we're going to print a bunch of the same ad, and they're just going to deliver it to every household in that set of zip codes or addressable market. And there's use cases for that, but more times than not, targeting and being very specific with who your audiences are, how you're speaking to those audiences, ends up resulting in better performance, even if there's a little bit more cost. Direct mail in general is, on a per reach basis, is one of the more expensive channels, even if you're using EDDM. And so to spend a little bit more to be able to be razor focused, to be able to use lookalike models, segmentation, predictive mathematics to eliminate a lot of the waste and to be really focused on understanding who you're engaging with has been game changing in digital, and it's been game changing for our clients in direct mail as well. So that's piece one. The second piece is execution. Historically, in order to execute direct mail, you needed to have a relationship with a printer, maybe a logistics provider. You need to understand some of the complexities around mail sorting with the U.S. Postal Service. Lead times to this day, if you run direct mail with a traditional provider, can be 60 to 90 days from the time that you have an idea and want to leverage direct mail for a marketing initiative to when your campaign's actually in the wild. Think about it, 3 months. Whereas on Facebook or Google, you're like, this afternoon, I'm going to sit down and open the dashboard and serve some ads. So for us, building the technology to be able to execute in real time or as close to real time as possible in direct mail, and to do so using dashboards and software versus phones and in-person meetings, et cetera, all of a sudden unlocks the dynamic nature of the channel, allows you to do all sorts of interesting, dynamic, and performant things. And then the third piece is measurement, which you alluded to as well. It's, hey, if I'm allocating budget to execute a specific strategy or tactic that I think may drive a performance goal, I need to know whether it did or didn't so I can get smarter and make better decisions moving forward. And in direct mail, there are lots of different ways that you can measure, both from a primary and a secondary perspective. But the main thing to know is that in all campaigns outside of EDDM, you need to tell the U.S. Postal Service who and what house to send a piece of mail to, which means if you're capturing that data at the transaction point through your website, a mobile app, a POS, if you're a retailer, you can be capturing that same address, name and address level data, and then there can be a clean match back to recipients of a piece of direct mail during a certain attribution window or time period. And we bring all three of those things to life in an automated fashion. They sound maybe scary and complex. You can make them as simple, straightforward, or as nuanced as you want, but good software with good user interface allows you to do complicated things in a way that is simple. And that really is what we try and do.
This is fascinating. There's so many questions I have that I'm trying to think of the order that would be most useful for the listeners. First and foremost, it makes me think of data is very important, but proper use of the data, proper data, and asking the right questions of the data is way more important than just data. So when you first started talking, you were mentioning personalization. I started going down map in my head that may or may not be true. I started picturing it instead of the every door direct mail that's just a generic message that comes out. I started to think of, whoa, is this a possibility that it is actually saying the name of the person who lives in the house and messaging could maybe change? I don't mean literally every home, but possibly. I don't know. That was kind of my first question, is how personalized does it get and how personalized can the offer get? And this will be a second part of the question, unless you want to answer it together. Do you have to have a lot of data going into this? I'm sure it's more helpful if you could input, here's our CRM and connect it. But I also know you were talking about prospecting. So how do those two play together basically when it comes to data? How refined can it get, and how does this personalization piece work?
Sure. So on production perspective, over the last 10, 15 years, there has been innovations with companies like HP who have created digital commercial printing equipment that can be very efficient and allows advertisers, marketers, users to individualize every piece of mail that comes off the printer, which is different than what's called offset printing, which is when you think about the big, like 2-3 story printing press machines that newspapers and magazines were printed off of. Those machines do a great job of efficiency and scale, but don't allow for the same level of personalization. So pretty much the industry allows for you to be as efficient and scalable as you want in your campaigns, or as and personalize as you want. So you talked about names, and you could have different images, completely different layouts that end up getting produced and integrated as part of an ad campaign, depending on what you know about the customer. The devil's always in the details. And so there are things that you need to think about, which is how nuanced you want to be. Is there any risk in making consumers uncomfortable if you're marketing to them in too personalized a way? And then also like how you think about measurement and learning. If every single ad is basically its own, or every single ad that gets printed is basically its own campaign, there's no real way to leverage measurement to understand what's working and what's not, versus using like groupings of audiences and groupings of A/B or multivariate creative testing. So I don't know how deep we want to get, but I think the answer to your first question is yes, it is possible to be as specific and personalized as you want. The use cases are things that you want to think about before deploying, and those are all tied back to what you're looking to accomplish and how you're going to evaluate the success at the end of the campaign.
Yeah, this reminds me, I almost started talking about this prior. My father had a print shop, and I remember at one point in time, he was doing ads for 2 different dentists. But the difference of what one dentist put on that same cardstock that the other dentist put on, same color, same everything, the different words on this one created so many sales that that dentist wanted to buy the building next door and have my dad come work full time for him, because that's how much it moved the business. And the other one slowly went out of business. But literally just in the difference in what was sent out, same service, same relative quality of work. Again, for what I knew, there wasn't Yelp and everyone back then, so I don't know for sure. But that ability to communicate in a slightly different way, even though it was on the same cardstock, same everything, same printer it was coming out of, the way that it got them to take action and come to that particular place and do business with them, it's really interesting, all the possibilities that this could serve up. So sorry for interrupting the second part there. It just reminded me about that. That's why that personalization question was so relevant to me personally.
The first question was talking about personalization, how deep you can go. And we talked a little bit about how just because something's possible from an executional perspective doesn't mean that that's the right place to start or the best use case or execution for your marketing goal. And then you talked about the difference in performance, but there are a lot of other things that could be going on there. Like the quality of the audience that was being mailed to you by one dentist versus the other could have been a big difference. The neighborhood, the clientele that they serve may have been the difference. And if you'd taken dentist B, a successful dentist creative, and sent it out to dentist A's audience, maybe it would have performed equally as poorly as the creative that he or she sent. And so that leads to the idea of knowing your customer, unlocking the data. I think your second question was asking about data. And the first part of your data is liquid gold. If you have a business that's an ongoing concern, whether you're a late stage, wildly successful business, you're just getting started, you should be learning everything you can about your customer. And you should be learning everything you can about your prospects who choose not to become your customers. And the more that you can gain insights into the differences that make up those two groups of individuals, or maybe there's several nuanced groups of individuals there. Maybe there are multiple products or services that you're selling. And so understanding the differences between those that engage with one product or service set and those that engage with another product and service set can help you better understand why your benefit statements and value propositions are resonating with a certain group. Once you understand that, then you can start thinking about how do I communicate better through my ads and my creative. Then you can start thinking about what data sources and media channels are out there that allow me to reach more people that look like this segment of customer. So all of those things kind of play together, I think, to make the difference in successful marketing and successful business and unsuccessful marketing and unsuccessful business. I think we all want to drink our own Kool-Aid, and I'm an entrepreneur. I'm as guilty as anything. I wake up multiple times a week with the most brilliant idea that you've ever heard, and I'm in love with it. And, it doesn't take but a couple hours of research to at least flesh out, did I just think it was a neat idea because I came up with it? Or is there actually a need and a pain point that I can help solve with this? And that goes into this understanding of who your addressable market is, who your potential prospects are, why you exist as a business, why you differentiated. And all of that can play into knowing your customer, knowing how to find prospects that look like those customers, and knowing how to communicate your value proposition and benefits to those prospects so that they actually have a shot at discovering you and engaging with you.
So what's a typical user? Is there an average product value or an average cart value that would find this more useful? I would assume a higher end product value is going to be the most useful use of your technology.
Peloton or iFit.
Yeah, something like that. Like I picture those being fantastic products for something like this. So I would say, what is a typical value before this is useful to them? Or is there a certain stage in their business where this becomes more useful?
Those are all important questions. We have found really with any marketing channel, it's more a factor of conversion rate to consideration cycle and an average order value. It's not absolute. So you can look at a business with a very high average order value or a very high lifetime value or expected lifetime value. The advantage to them is they need a much lower conversion rate in order to make their advertising profitable. They're making so much per transaction, so much margin per transaction that they might only need 3 customers from a certain budget, whereas someone with a lower lifetime value or a lower average order value or margin per transaction might need 10 customers from that same media expenditure. So the key is, as long as the channel can deliver, whatever channel is, in our world, it's direct mail. So as long as direct mail can deliver a high enough conversion rate for your business based on the expected transaction value, it doesn't matter whether you're high, mid, or low average order value. There's certainly a minimum threshold when you think about just the cost to reach someone through an ad. If you're selling, dollar packs of gum, probably pretty hard. If you're selling like subscription to 50 packages of gum a week or something like that, like different story because higher average order value, built-in recurring revenue. But for the most part, we work with many advertisers who are selling shoes or apparel or cosmetics or skincare, supplements, things where it's maybe a $50 $60 average order value to $100 average order value. And we work with automotive manufacturers, insurance providers, financial service companies, or IoT fitness companies where you have $3,000, $4,000 per transaction plus a built-in subscription. But both sides of the spectrum can work. The other question you asked was kind of stage of your business. And that matters a lot. There are certain channels that are very dynamic and give you a lot of insights and knowledge with very light budgets. And there are other channels that require bigger budgets. We're in that require bigger budget camp. In order to get meaningful data, you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars. You're making that level of investment at a minimum into this channel, or at least with Postie, to get the value out of what we provide. And so if you're a business that's just getting to know your customer, you're just launching, you're just starting to scale, digital is amazing for that. With thousands of dollars, you can learn a bunch about what ad is resonating with your addressable markets, who's engaging with your website, and what traffic you're getting, what mobile apps are being downloaded from your ad budgets. When advertisers show up and they have relatively modest initial monthly media budgets, our recommendation is almost always there's a lot more growth for you in Facebook, in search, in programmatic, in email. Go deep there, get to a place where you feel very comfortable and you have replicatable success with your messaging, your frequency, your targeting, the way that you're packaging up and merchandising your product, et cetera. And then when you get to a point where you feel like, okay, you're well leveraged in those early to market channels, then that becomes a good time to start thinking about things like direct mail.
Definitely makes sense. I have this saying, he or she who is willing and able to spend the most to acquire a customer and willing and able to wait the longest to cash the check and still keep the lights on, they'll almost always win. That's where I would imagine being farther along in your business cycles and just a bigger company in general, you can try more creative things. You see the grays here. I'm old enough to remember we used to get a ton of junk mail in the actual mailbox and we were happy to see an email. Now you get tons of junk email and you're sometimes quite happy to see something that's interesting and unique in the actual mailbox. And this is where this potentially has this great opportunity in this world of attention-based economy to stand out in a unique way and then tie all these pieces together. Realtors, when they used to just come around and drop off the little calendar to be top of mind. So you'd put the calendar on your refrigerator in the hopes that someday when you finally think of using a realtor, you'll go down and look in the bottom corner and find their name and phone number and call them. But I think the combination of, if you're in the right place in your business, you want to try something creative, this thing could live on for longer, is where I was going with the email piece. The email's long and gone, the ad's long and gone. This potentially, even if it's a week, that's a long time to be sitting in someone's house. And combine that with your regular phone app. Can scan a QR code. You don't have to download a different app. There's no more friction with that. If you can make something that's compelling enough to just get them to scan it and it's living for a week or potentially longer in your home, it's really just up to how creative you can be and how big is your budget and willing to try something new.
Look, different media channels affect the purchase decision-making cycle differently. There are great media channels that are driving brand recognition and help you present your personality and kind of the essence behind your brand, but maybe they don't necessarily drive action. There are other channels that maybe don't do a great job presenting the essence of your brand, but are really good at motivating that final step, that transaction. And then there are places in the middle. When you're building a business, not just out there acquiring customers, but building a business, marketing is incredibly important, and understanding the different components of marketing, the different ways that it impacts both the short-term goals with the long-term goals. That's the difference between potentially finding a few quick customers, a few quick hits to your business right now versus building a sustainable business. And you talked about that. You have to be able to withstand the cycles. I love studying and understanding markets, and there's a lot of talk right now between inflation and interest rates and whatnot, but those people that understand the difference between short and long-term debt cycles tend to be able to stay in business for the long haul because they're not getting themselves over leveraged to a point where a macro lull hits, they're out of business. And so I think with life and business, there's one core principle that you alluded to, which is you just got to stay in the game. If you stay in the game, you always have potential to win. And that's with the business, it's you just can't go out of business. If you're always making $1 more than you're spending at the end of a year or whatever period you're measuring it by, you always have potential to live another day and get back to a growth cycle. In personal finance, it's the same thing. If you don't have to sell your assets, then there's always time. Assets almost always go up over time, at least in aggregate. The stock market goes up, precious metals go up, they go up and down throughout more micro level cycles. And the people that get hurt are those that have to sell when they're in a down market because they're over leveraged. Same thing's true with your marketing budget, right? So you talked about the idea of it's who can put money to work, who has the patience and the business model, the margin structure to be able to kind of withstand the time for your return on your investment to be realized, I think are themed throughout our personal life, the macro trends with our business, and certainly through advertising. You had mentioned that idea of staying in the game the longest, being able to outlast your competitors and put more money to work. That's the key with your marketing spend.
Yeah. So we can acquire new customers this way or prospect. We can obviously retarget, as you said earlier, if we had data already and we've been in business for a while and it's not a new venture-backed business, we can put our customer data in there. It's going to be more useful. I'm curious, do you have API that connects to other sources of information? If somebody was just starting out, how does it work if someone just wanted to get started with this, but they didn't really have a ton of data? They had the money and they wanted to try something unique. That would be one of the questions I would have.
Yeah, well, you touched on one of the beauties of direct mail, and we fell in love with the idea that it's a full funnel marketing channel. So I think you nailed it. We kind of think about three core buckets of marketing tactics and how they apply to the funnel. So there's the holy grail for most businesses, which is pure growth, top of funnel, prospecting, acquisition. Direct mail is extremely effective. The entire addressable market, anyone with a physical address is reachable through direct mail. And Postie makes it possible to access the tier one, as you mentioned, compliant data sources out there and leverage that data for targeting. The second piece becomes what we typically call mid-funnel, and that's you're leveraging digital assets in your various marketing channels to create the opportunity to engage with the consumer directly through your website, your mobile app, etc. Maybe you're capturing leads, maybe you're already doing digital retargeting based on people that you knew clicked on an ad already, engaged in your website. Postie enables direct mail to be able to execute the same type of campaigns. So based on how a customer or prospect engage with your website or mobile apps, you can then use that data to make decisions on how to communicate in the future with those consumers and try and actually convert them into customers. And then the third bucket is CRM. So all of the retention, the re-engagement capabilities with your existing customers. In that world, it's a blend of first-party and third-party data. So many advertisers have databases where they're capturing and storing customer data. They understand what product, the frequency with which someone purchased, how they became a customer. And then when it's time to try and turn them into repeat customers, direct mail, certainly through Postie, can be leveraged against that first party data. But then if you have a bigger database over time, maybe it outgrows your ability to reach everyone in that database because of the cost associated with it. And you want to make more insightful decisions on who's likely to be re-engaged, who's likely to increase the frequency with which they purchase. You can leverage third party data to help you understand the nuances and differences between different buckets of consumers through your CRM, and Postie enables that as well. And all three of those can be actionable if you're an earlier stage company. And many of the companies that we work with are Fortune 100 and Fortune 50 companies that have tens of millions of customers they've engaged with. They have an enormous addressable market on the prospecting front. And so they constantly have to make decisions and evaluations on what is the best way to engage the right people with the right message for the right product or service. No matter how big of a company you are, you can't reach 280 million Americans every day through every media channel. You have to be efficient with your marketing budget. And so that's the beauty of direct mail. It's top of funnel prospecting, it's mid funnel first party behavioral data, activations, and then it's all of the goodness of leveraging and activating your CRM data and insights in order order to foster a long-term, meaningful, profitable relationship with your customers.
Yeah, I love it. My mind is completely blown. It's Friday, so when we're done here, I can just go write down all my ideas, and I'll probably be writing you an email after the fact. I'm curious.
Yeah.
I'm sure you love all your customers, but what's the most creative or fun use that's top of mind for you?
Oh gosh, that's a tough one. We've so many just really interesting brands that we work with.
It can be the most recent. It's really more what's something that's just top of mind that someone could get an idea. They understand where we're coming from. They understand we can prospect, we can do this, but just actually kind of telling a story of any customer that had an idea for something, may or may not thought it would work, but you figured out how it would work. And then this is what the outcome was. Don't have to share numbers.
Yeah, I'll give you two examples, very different. One was actually years ago. It was a business in the pet category. They were trying to figure out a way to kind of delight the customer, stand out, kind of showcase themselves as clever. And they designed a piece of mail that was an oversized postcard. It did a really nice job of communicating their value proposition, their benefits. And it was a origami piece that could be folded into a pooper scooper. It's super clever.
I love it.
Campaign did great, but whether it did or didn't, I love those creative and clever ideas.
Well, definitely from a top of mind. And that's a perfect example of if you have the budget and you want to have mind share, that's a fantastic one. Because I doubt this is something that they're going to be using over and over again, nor are they going to be ordering a pooper scooper. This was about branding.
Yeah, it was all about getting you to take an extra moment to say, that's clever, so aligned with what their product and services are. They knew their customer. Pet lovers are pet lovers. I can't tell you how many times I've taken my dog for a walk and I realized I forgot a bag and I'm taking the dog back, I'm getting a bag, I'm going out. It was just clever. There's an emotional reaction. The other is a complete opposite end of the spectrum. It's Fortune 100 company, one of the biggest entertainment companies in the world, was looking at working with us as their go-to DM market provider. And there are less expensive ways to get mail into the world, but your absolute cost is very different than are there more effective ways. And this client ended up going a different route. It was really disappointing. We really believed that we were the best provider for them, would have set them up tremendously successful. They had fairly limitless budgets and they ended up scaling aggressively. And just recently we started engaging with them again, and they're sending tens of millions of pieces of mail a year and they're miserable. It's the same old school methodologies. They don't get access to the same insights and data. They can't move dynamically. They're not integrated on a software solution that speaks to the rest of their backend databases and marketing channels. The beauty is that they had to go out and do their thing, and they learned in their own way that making investment in technology, sometimes if there may be a little bit more upfront cost, does result in more efficiency over the long run, better results, a more sane experience.
This has been fantastic. My mind is flowing like crazy. I'm sure listeners' minds are flowing also. What is the best way for someone to learn more about Postie or get in touch with you and get a demo?
Yeah, absolutely. We work really hard at publishing meaningful, valuable content on our website. And that's, as we talked earlier, postie.com. So POSTIE.com. That's the best place to start. There's all sorts of information on the channel, our capabilities, case studies, use cases in the wild. And if you're interested in connecting with us after reviewing some of the content there, there's an easy one-click request a demo, and we are very quick to respond and set up time to engage. If someone has a question that's appropriate directly for me, LinkedIn is Messenger is the easiest way to reach me. So one click away from kind of seeing who you are in your background and understanding the context a bit more. And I believe I'm David L. Fink is my handle, but certainly if you look for Dave Fink Postie on LinkedIn, you'll find me, no problem.
It's a pleasure to have you on the show. I definitely look forward to learning more about Postie as well. Like I said, I'm probably going to be taking all kinds of notes and possibly have some clients that could use it. So you'll probably be hearing from me regardless. But
Sounds great.
It's great having you on the show. Equid listener, get out there. You know what to do. Get out there and make it happen. Bye, everybody.
Really appreciate you listening.
We hope you find the tips we give you helpful for growing your business.
You can find all of our past episodes and a lot more useful stuff at equid.com/podcast.
And also, check us out on your favorite podcasting platform like Apple Podcast or Stitcher. And make sure you never miss an episode by subscribing.
Be sure to let us know what you think by rating and reviewing so we can serve you better.
So subscribe on your favorite platform.
And come join our community, check out the transcripts, or tell us why you would be a great guest at equid.com/podcast.